Still can't hear you, Karel.
Still can't hear you.
Still can't hear me.
Now you are there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's gone again.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you're back. Teams is giving me trouble with mute and video all day. So if everything goes wrong, you guys have my phone number. All right. Let's set up some screen sharing.
Floor is yours. Good luck.
All right. All right. I hope everyone's still a little bit awake. And if not, maybe you should go get some coffee. So I hope to teach you something today about deploying apps in Intune with PowerShell. Mainly, I want to explain how you can make it easier on yourself. So who am I? Currently, I'm a secure modern workplace consultant at Synergics. I have about 15 years experience as an IT consultant and 6 years in Microsoft 365. I'm a certified Microsoft professional and a certified Microsoft trainer. I recently started a blog, shellblazer.com. You can always check it out, and you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn and Twitter, included here in the slide and at the end of the slide deck as well. So let's get into it. What we're going to talk about today and how we are structuring it. So I always like to start with why. Want to explain a little bit what's out there as to app packaging and repositories. Talk a little bit about the old ways and how we can solve these things a little bit better with Intune, or as it's called today, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Going to talk a little bit about the toolkit that I'm using to deploy these apps to Intune. And then we're going to dive into how we're using this toolkit and how we're structuring everything so that we can reuse it again and again and again. Some notes from the field, some things I stumbled across. I bumped in some walls I had to break down, and maybe some improvements that we can still make to make our life even easier. And at the end, there's always room for questions. So don't hesitate to ask if you have any. So I'm not really a big slide builder, but I try to incorporate some funny images. So I was hoping to start with why are we doing this? Because at the moment, Intune provides us with a very nice way to deploy and manage our Windows 10 systems. They can manage Android and iOS as well, but we're going to focus on Windows 10 today. Well, we like to make our life a little bit easier with some automation. We don't want to do everything twice. We don't want to click through the management portal and tediously upload app by app by app. And that's why there's better ways to go about it using some scripting to make our lives a little bit easier. So why do we want to do this? Because we want to improve a little bit on the existing tools. Microsoft has provided us a way to, for instance, deploy Win32 apps. They gave us a fantastic tool to package it all. And as you can see here, the Intune Win App Util application that we use to package these files to deploy them with Intune has a set of parameters that we can use to create our packages. Now, these parameters are fairly cryptic in my opinion. And as well, each time you start a package, and maybe you don't do it every day, because if you do it every day, you probably know them by heart. But if you don't, you always have to look them up. And there is no autofill with tab complete like you have in PowerShell. What more we like to do by making scripts is actually reducing the complexity, because otherwise you have to remember every step you have to take. You're probably forgetting something along the way, and we try to make it easier on ourselves by making a script that we provide with the proper parameters and values that will perform all these tasks automated for us. And you don't have to remember all these steps every time you have to do it. Not only that, but you can serialize these tasks. And for instance, if you have to deploy like 200 packages into Intune, you could just wrap them up in one pretty file and then just deploy them all at once. So to make it easy on ourselves, we can use things that are already out there. So what's out there already? There are many tools and repositories available to us that we can reuse to make our lives a little bit easier and not to have to do the work twice. So what's all out there? We have, for instance, Chocolate, which is open source packaging repository. You have a counterpart of that that's called Ruksuk. You have PatchMyPC, which is not a free repository and tool. You have these days Winget, the Microsoft Package Manager, which is something that's going to look a little bit like Chocolate, I think, but it still needs to get some updates to get feature parity, in my opinion. And you can always use the Microsoft Store as well. So there is quite a lot of the things out there, and my personal preferences for some that maybe has noticed my t-shirt is the Chocolate repository. And why is that? It's because usually small business clients that I often work with have a low budget and they want to do a lot of things, and Chocolate offers them a way to do these things without putting in too much time, effort, and money, because it's open source and you can use it freely. What is the main feature that attracts me in using Chocolate is that you can actually make these packages that you deploy with this tool update automatically at either at startup of your computer or maybe at a given time that you configure yourself. And it's fairly easy to do those things. So deploying applications to our environments has been done in various amounts of ways in the old days, or in they're being used at this time still. So not everyone is adopting this modern way of working yet. So what are some of those old ways that we know to deploy our software to Windows 10 clients, managed or unmanaged, or in the domain or outside the domain? There's many ways to go about it. And the more tedious way to do it is to do it manually. And usually I know some software developers that if you want to install their software, that it comes with like a manual of 10 pages. I'm sure some of you have experience with that. And you have to go through every step to make the software work and deploy it. So there is an opportunity there already to try and automate that by scripting it. In a domain environment, I know people have been deploying applications with group policy objects and policies to have some sort of central tool that delivers it to Windows 10 clients. You can use imaging. So you make this golden image where you deploy already all this information, all this software, and then you sysprep it so you can deploy it to various machines, and then you can initiate that machine with the software already installed. You can use MDT, you have SCCM for the more bigger clients. But in general, if you're in a small business, and that's what this story focuses on a little bit, but you can scale it out, is that usually the more automated ways cost way too much money and time to maintain. And that's something that we can solve by combining Intune and Chocolate to make their lives a little bit easier. Because what's the most time-consuming thing about packaging software is that you have to keep everything up to date. So once you packaged it and there's an update, you have to package the update, or you have to repackage the app altogether to create the new version, and then you have to get it installed. So that's something we try to solve here with Chocolate for the whole repository that you have available as third-party software in this tool. So how are we going to do this with Intune? So Microsoft has given us the opportunity to create Winter 2 app packages, and we can, with the packaging tool, create pretty much anything these days. There are some limits, of course, depending on the software. But still, I haven't encountered much problem packaging anything in this Intune Win format with the Intune Win packaging tool. So the main appeal to this is that we can package PowerShell scripts as well. So we have these tools like Chocolate that are command line based, and that gives us an opportunity to script these things out and automate deployment and updating by using the command line. So I already explained a little bit why I love Chocolate before, but to go more in detail, it's scriptable. That makes us able to, for instance, package this as a script with this Winter 2 packaging tool. And we have these auto upgrade and update features available. What are they actually? Actually, they are a little bit of an app that's available in the repository at Chocolate. And what do these packages actually do? You have two of them that you can fairly easy deploy with Chocolate itself. Mainly, at first, there was only these Choco upgrade all at startup. What does it do? It just executes the command to update all your Chocolate deployed packages at the startup of your computer. That's not always very convenient because you start up your computer and then all these apps start updating all at once, which is not probably going to take some time. It's going to take some resources, so maybe not the best way to go about it. So there is a second app, and you could have created it yourself as well. But what does it do? It actually, and it's a copy of the first application. It actually deploys a scheduled task that it performs this command at a certain time or at startup. Excuse me a little bit. I'm a little bit dehydrated from the warm weather here in Belgium. So it's fairly easy to deploy this app command line as well. And later on in the demo, I'm going to show you what it entails to get it working. But for instance, this second application, you'll be able to, for instance, set a certain time at which the upgrade needs to be performed. You can choose to do it daily or weekly or monthly. You can set the date, the time. You can go fairly detailed in that to set it to your specifications. So how to get all these apps in Intune and how to package them up without having every time to use the packaging tools as we saw before is by using a toolkit. Now, personally, I haven't created this toolkit all by myself. I found this toolkit created by Ben Reader. You can find him on GitHub under the acronym tabs not spaces. And he created a toolkit that I found very interesting because it helped me deploy my apps to Intune. Now, I created a little bit of my own version to tweak it here and there so that it would do more what I would like. For instance, it has also a script that prepares my environment, my computer, to do the packaging by installing all the modules I need in PowerShell and downloading the packaging tool and the Azure copy tool as well. One of the things I added myself is that it checks for the latest version, and if I don't have the latest version, it replaces the toolkit in my environment with the latest version of the tool. So if you want to look them up, you can always check mine and Ben's profile on GitHub and get yourself started. If you want to read more about it, about how we made it and other tools Ben created, you can visit his blog site as well at powers-hell.com. And there are some very interesting tools available there. And if you're like working with Intune and cloud-based management. So let's dive in. I'm going to get open my VS Code, and then we can go in about how it's all set up, how we can get it on our computer, and check how it works. So is everything readable for everyone, or is it a little bit too small? You have to adjust screen size.
Perfect.
It's okay. All right. So first, a little bit about the toolkit itself. So there are three main scripts that I derived a little bit from Ben's first version, meaning the first run is prepare environment. It's a PowerShell script that actually goes to prepare my Windows environment by installing my needed modules and also downloading and checking with the latest version of the Azure copy file tool and the packaging tool to create our Intune Win 32 packages. The second script is actually to build our packages. And the third one is to deploy them to Intune. So do not every time have to review parameters and check how to do that because we need to give a lot of info to Intune to correctly deploy our packages. We use a format, and in this toolkit we are using YAML files. It's a specific formatting to be able to read it with PowerShell as well. One of the modules we install with the prepare environment is also this module to read and interpret YAML files. And to show a little bit how the structure works is that we have a folder hierarchy that's a little bit important for specific apps. For instance, this is to deploy Chocolate, where we put the source. In this case, the Chocolate application is deployed by a PowerShell script, and we have an Intune Win folder that is created when we build the package. The package will be built on the parameters that we set in our YAML file and that we can reuse later again and again. So for each application you want to deploy, you have to just create this one YAML file where you can bundle all this information. And then when you go to packaging this tool, you just have to give this file as a parameter, and you're good to go to build and deploy the application. Let's look a little bit at the structure. So in this case, our source is a PowerShell file. We can attribute the app name, the publisher, give it a description, specify the install file, and then the command line that you want to assign to install or uninstall the application. Then next, we can set to run as a 32-bit application. We can specify a minimum OS that we want to specify in Intune, and we can specify our detection method. All methods are available: registry, keypad, MSI, and file detection. Usually I use file detection for these kind of things. And I've been looking into improving on this, specifically for Chocolate, that I can use the command line of Chocolate to check if the application is actually installed with Chocolate. Because, for instance, you can deploy Adobe Reader with Chocolate, or it can already be installed on the computer, for instance. And if we have a detection script that checks on file, then it will detect the install of the Adobe Reader XA if it's installed with Chocolate or not. But if it's not installed with Chocolate, our auto update procedure will not work for this application. So that's something we will get into later on. So about our source, the PowerShell script is just a PowerShell script where we execute the install method for Chocolate, and in this case, directly. Maybe I'm going a little bit too fast through this. It's all a little bit small. Let's make it a little bit more readable. So what I try to include in this, because sometimes installs fail, and you really want something to troubleshoot as well, is that's why I build into this scripts a way to write away a log file. So in this instance, before we execute our process to install, we're going to create a log file and then right away start a transcript. And at the end of the script, we write the transcript to the log file. Here we install the Chocolate application. If you go to the Chocolate website, you'll see that that is the way to go about it. And what we do straight after that is actually activate the auto update application right at once. In this case, we use the upgrade all at startup. We don't use the more flexible upgrade all at and with the extra parameters as you could see in my slide deck earlier, but that's also an option to replace this line with the new, more flexible auto upgrade application. I always include in the script a way to install and uninstall, so that at the command line, you can, in Intune, when you go through the web interface to deploy an application, you can give both the command line to install and uninstall, so that you can later on, if you want to uninstall the application on all your clients, you can create a require uninstall assignment in Intune. And then we have some error catching and logging at the end. So that might be a little bit complex and fast here, but let's recap a little bit. So we have our source file, we have our YAML file with all our parameters that we would have needed to enter in the web interface in Microsoft Intune to properly deploy our app. And now we want to get everything up in the cloud without having to touch the web interface. And what is the gain we're going to have is if we have to do this for like 50 apps, then you're probably going to be clicking around half a day. And lately, I must say that the portals are not as responsive as they used to be. And that's probably because there is a big load on Microsoft infrastructure because of all the working from home that's been going on. So you want to do it fast, and you don't want to click through the portal half a day long. So how are we going to go about it is we're going to prepare our environment, then build our package, and then deploy our package to Intune. So let's open a command line and let's see how easy this actually is. So the first instance, we're going to set our location to where our toolkit actually resides. For going a little bit faster and easier, all the commands in my notepad. So we go to our toolkit folder. And how are we going to go about it is that we can now just use our scripts. The first one to run is prepare environment. And no extra parameters are needed here. It's just going to get and install everything that we need to deploy our applications. There we go, downloading all the tools. And it's again taking a little bit longer than we anticipated. There we go. So now we prepared our environment. We installed our YAML module. If it wasn't already installed, we install our Azure AD module that we use to authenticate against Azure AD. We created a folder where we capture our command line tools for uploading files and for packaging our software. And now what we're going to do is actually build our package. And for this, we use our build package script. Now, we talked earlier about this packaging tool from Microsoft that we use to package Win32 applications that can package pretty much everything these days. And we saw the -c, -s, -q parameters that we can use to specify the information that we need to package our software into an Intune Win file. Now, I don't like remembering which is what, and I always get them confused. So that's why this really helps me deploy and build my packages. So let's just experience the niftiness of this is that we can just autocomplete by typing build and tab. So we have our build package PS1, and now we can include our parameters by just using the tab complete. So we have only one variable or parameter that we actually have to give. And in this case, that's our YAML file that contains all our data about this app. And to give in the path of the YAML file, I use, you can here specify the exact path or something that I like to do if I have more than one app to deploy. In this case, we're going to do just one, but still is to use the PowerShell command get child item. What are we going to do here is, let me just get the command so we don't have to type it completely, is to do our get child item and to specify a little bit of folder structure here this all you can get from my GitHub repository as specified in the slide deck. If the slide deck isn't published by our good friends from MC2MC, I'm going to upload it anyway on my blog page or my GitHub site as well. So, and I will post about it on Twitter. So many ways to get to it. So in this case, we're going to get all YAML files in this chocolate.deploy application folder. And that means this application. To actually process this information to our build package, we're going to pipe it with for each. And this is something that you will be able to use to, for instance, if you have a folder where you accumulated all your packages, you can just use this. Let's just see build. There we go, app config. And then we can here include the full path by using the pipeline variable and then including full name. And all these things you can use step complete to complete so that you know, don't have to type everything out. Now, we're just going to build this package. And while it's doing that, let's get into it a little bit deeper. Or it's already done. That's how easy it is. Then we have our chocolate package, and that's actually the tool to enable using the repository of chocolate, where when we install this chocolate application, we can use a command line. That's choco.exe is the command line tool here that we can use then to install all different software packages. For instance, there is pretty much anything that you can think of is in the chocolate repository. You just have to look it up on the chocolate.org website in the package repository to check if what you're looking for is actually there. Things like, for instance, Visual Studio Code is one of the packages that you can deploy, but also Google Chrome and Notepad++ for those that's like that. And now we have built this package, and now we want to deploy it as well to Intune. So for this, we can do pretty much the same thing. So we can reuse our command from before, and we just have to change out our build package command by a deploy package command, and we just give the application config file at the end. But there is one extra parameter that you have to give here, and that's name. And what you have to give here is actually the name of the admin user that you're going to use to deploy your packages to Intune. Why is that? If the token is still valid, then the next package is not going to require you to sign in and give your password. It's just going to use the token to upload and deploy your next package into the portal. So that's why we give the name as well, to identify this authentication token. So in this case, we're going to deploy the package now. And there we go, we have an error. And I think I made a And that's why I like tab complete, because it's not name, but it's going to be user, I think. Let's see where it is. Yeah, user. And then we are going through the process of deploying the package to Intune. So we're of course having modern authentication popping up. This is just an account I have in this great organization called Contoso. And just to make you not freak out, yes, this supports also multi-factor authentication. It's not enabled in my demo tenant because I just want to work fast. But yes, you should enable multi-factor authentication. Certainly for an account with this much privileges. So, and now it's preparing everything and uploading the file into the Intune environment that we specified here. So while all this is loading up, let's get a little bit deeper into what we want to deploy now, because now we've deployed Chocolate, which is pretty much only the tool, but we want to deploy software as well. We want to deploy Google Chrome. We want to deploy Firefox for our users to use their favorite software tools. We want to give them through a modern way of deployment. So you can go very far, and you can see by my demo samples here is that you can even offer up the EID software, Firefox, GIMP, the open source replacement of Photoshop, Inkscape. You can even deploy Java runtime and VLC as well, Visual Studio Code, and you can even deploy Visual Studio Code extensions with Chocolate if you want to please all your developers. Now, there's a little bit something you have to know about this is that all these packages that you see here, these are not really the packages. These are just the YAML files with the config that we want to provide. And actually, we just need to create one package, and that's our universal Chocolate app install script. And this script we have in also a PowerShell script that we have available here. How does it work? We have actually a function that will get the app name we want to install, which is the parameter that we should be using with the choco.exe tool. And we can give for parameter the install or uninstall mode. And that gives us the ability to either install or uninstall this Chocolate package. So we have let's get to the interesting part, mainly creating a log file, first and foremost, to help us troubleshooting should an install fail. And then we have here we're invoking the process here to get more information in our log file. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but you can always just use my PowerShell scripts from GitHub to get started yourself and then maybe improve or adapt it to your needs and specifications. So it's going to execute this chocolate.exe tool with the argument list to install the application, and the Y is just to force the install without any confirmation pop-ups. Then the uninstall switch mode will do exactly the same thing, but uninstall the application. And this way we can use the same script to both give install and uninstall command line command in the Intune portal. You can do this manually by just uploading it to the portal and then giving this command lines in the web interface, but this will allow us to upload it as well with the configuration in the YAML file. Now, we have a YAML file to deploy each and every application just by using this same package. And we have one YAML file here that we use just to build this package. All we have to know here in this build is actually we have to use the install file. That's the most important part of it. And the rest will not be used for the build. But the deployment will be important, that everything is filled out for detection, for requirements, and of course, name, publisher, description, and things like that. And whatever you want to add as extra information is for app URL or app file or whatever. Now, what makes our scripting tool so helpful here is that that we see that by now our Chocolate app has been uploaded. So let's check out our portal. Let's see, I had it open already. So let's refresh. That's one of the downsides that I wanted to clear out is I already tried it out before just to be sure that everything was working properly. Is I already uploaded the Chocolate application. So when you run it again for the same application, then you're going to have it double. That's something that I probably could improve on in a next iteration of the toolkit. Maybe something that's been already resolved and in his latest version in his GitHub. So just to go on, we're going to delete this one so that we just have the one in our portal. And then we're going to go back to our PowerShell. And what we want to do is now we want to actually, we want to deploy all these applications. So what do we have to do to make this happen is we have to just run 2 command lines, to be honest. So before we had the get child item on the Chocolate deploy folder, which is here in our app. Let's see. Let's make this a little bit bigger to make it more clear. There we go. So we have the Chocolate deploy folder where we have just the Chocolate application that installs the tool on your computer once you deploy it with Intune. And also can instantly as well install the auto update schedule task. Now we have our Chocolate applications and we want to build the application. So I told you we have just this one deploy PowerShell script that will be able to either install or uninstall either Chocolate application. So that's the only one we're going to have to build into an Intune Win file. So let's check this out. So this was our command line before, and now we just have to get to the other folder. So we have our Chocolate, in this case, app deploy. And if we tap here, we can also autocomplete our path. And then we just want to have this one build YAML file, so we can specify build and then use the asterisk to specify a wildcard and then the .yaml part as well. So let's keep it on this for now. So what do we get when we run this? Is we get this one YAML file that we're going to use to do our build of the Intune Win package of this script. So if we turn this command line up again, we're going to run it through this for each, and then use the build package script again to create our Intune Win file. And the only parameter we need to give is the app config file. and that's going to be piped. So if any of the PowerShell is confusing or anything, it's not something that we are able to get into today, but if you have any questions, you can always reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn if you want to have some clarification on some of the things I use in these scripts. So we're going to build our package. And again, I have done something wrong. Let's see. Cannot validate the argument. And I have stupidly typed S instead of the $sign. If I seem a bit chaotic or yeah, out of it, it's very warm out here and my son is occupying most of my nights these days. So sorry about that. But here we go. So we're building our Intune Mint package, and as you can see, that's pretty fast. And now we want to deploy it to Intune as well, but we don't want to deploy just this. We want to deploy like all these applications. We want to deploy 7-Zip, Adobe Reader, Chrome, the EID software. So how are we going to go about it? Is by actually doing also this get child item. And now it's going to become clear to you why I've been using this is because with this, we can get all these YAML files. And now instead of build, and that's why they are formatted that way, all these are starting out with deploy. And we're going to get just those deployment YAML files. There we go. You can see the build YAML file is not in there. And now we're going to pipe it again with for each, and then is going to get all our apps up in Intune. So in this case, we're going to deploy with the deploy script. We're going to add the app config file by piping the full path to the YAML file, and then we're going to add our user. And let's just load it up. There we go. And as you can see, we didn't need to authenticate this time because it's still using our authentication token from before. So now it's going to one by one upload actually this one package several times, but with different parameters for the install and uninstall of the application, and of course with other names and descriptions and things like that. Now you say this is only for Chocolate, but you can use this same method as well to deploy other types of applications. For instance, as an example, I have here the Adobe Reader to deploy it just as the MSI file, for instance. Now in my GitHub, I couldn't upload the actual installer, the actual MSI, because it's just too big. So in my GitHub, I just provided the link to one of those installers and the YAML file to deploy it to deploy it to Intune. So in this case, it's just going to use this. No, it's not an MSI, it's an exe installer that you can use several MSI related command line parameters on, and afterwards you can always uninstall it with MSI exec, for instance. Just to show you that it's not, this toolkit is not limited to only doing Chocolate, but you can do all these other things as well. Now, let's go and look in our portal what's coming up there. And if we refresh, I'm hoping that the first app is going to be available, and then you'll see the first two apps already uploaded. And this script is just going to slowly go through all these applications that we've prepared by just creating one YAML file for each application. Now, if you're a consultant and you have to do this for 1 client, 2 clients, 3 clients, you can, once you created this, you can take it along for the next one as well. So that's a big time saver, in my opinion. Now, this is going to be certainly for Chocolate packaged applications, is going to be timeless, because actually by using the repository, if the repository is kept up to date, your package actually always has the latest version. And with the auto install, auto update, upgrade app that we deploy with Chocolate as well, then you have a mechanism that is going to try to update all these applications to the latest version available in the Chocolate repository. And that is the biggest time saver of all, because in the end, if you look at applications like Adobe Reader or Firefox or Google Chrome, and okay, it's not always, you don't have to do it this way because Google Chrome has all other ways or mechanisms to be able to keep that up to date, but not every application is going to be able to keep you up to date on its own. So this will force and try to update all these applications and keep them up to date, saving you and securing you from whatever security holes that were in there that were being patched with the latest update. So it's not only to make your life easier, but it's also to make you more secure. And that's even more important these days. So that's pretty much it about how we deploy them to Intune. But there is one thing that's pretty important as well. There is one thing that my toolkit script just can't do yet, and that is actually setting a dependency. And I'm still looking into that, how to be able to do it. But for now, you still have to open an application, because to install this, you have to have the Chocolate application on your computer. And usually how I resolve this is if I deploy a Windows 10 machine with autopilot, I usually device assign to all devices the Chocolate application, and then later on user basis assign the third-party applications that are deployed with Chocolate as the user. They will also be installed at a later stage. That resolves this issue a little bit, but the better way is to actually go into the properties and set a dependency. And you can set a dependency for another application that's available in Intune. So, and maybe I went through that a little bit fast, but I opened up the Adobe Reader application. I always specify in the name that it's being deployed by Chocolate, so as to be clear later on that it's being deployed this way. And then you have these dependencies that you can set. And here you can select or add a different application that needs to be installed first before this is being installed. So you can select this application. In this case, we want Chocolate installer there. And then we can specify that if this application is trying to be installed and the Chocolate application is not there, that it's being installed automatically at this time. So you can set this and then review and save. That's one thing that I haven't been able to automate yet. Why? Because if you upload the Chocolate application, then its GUID is every time something else. So you either deploy it and then you can add it, but that makes your files, your YAML files where you would probably add this parameter, not completely, environment. I'm not sure how to say that in English, but you'll have to change the file every time, and that's not convenient in my opinion. So it's a pro and con trade-off. Then again, what's one more thing you have to do before the application is actually deployed is set an assignment. So you have to assign it to either be required or be available for enrolled devices. So that either it's required, then Intune will push the application and set the available for enrolled devices, then the users will be able to download or activate the install by going into the My Apps portal in Office 365. So that's pretty much how it works. So I hope it was all clear, but if you have questions later, you can always ask. So let's just dig into some extra notes from the field. And some of these things we already discussed, like possible improvements, like, for instance, use the toolkit as well to automate assignment, to specify groups, etc. But being that these groups in every tenant have to be created first, probably not so easy to do. Automate the dependencies. And like I said, in every Chocolate deployed app, the dependency is the Chocolate toolkit. So it has to be installed first before you can actually deploy an application with Chocolate. And automating, for instance, the YAML file creation. Now, we earlier were looking at these YAML files, and they have a very specific formatting that you have to follow. For instance, what you could do is actually create the structure for the YAML file and then create a script that will fill in all the extra information in the correct way so that it doesn't fail because you misplaced a space or tab or whatever. Because YAML is a format that is very sensitive to these things. So that's one improvement that we still could be able to do, is actually create a script that will construct the YAML files for you by just feeding it the information you want in there. And then the most important one that I bumped into is actually if you don't go into an environment deploying or enrolling devices into Intune, where you don't have a wipe and load scenario, and the machines are being enrolled as is, then all these machines are going to have software installed probably in all sorts of ways. And the chances are that, for instance, and that's the most precarious software I've bumped into that way, is the Adobe Reader application. Because if it's installed with certain languages, Chocolate will not take over management of the application that was installed before, because it will not be able to install the multi-language version over the custom language version that's already installed. So one of the things that you need to look into is, and that's why I've built in this logging feature. And for now, in my examples here, it logs to the C temp folder. But you can, for instance, if you deploy with the system account in Intune, you could also use the user temp folder of system, and then it's going to put away the log files in the user that aren't really visible to the end user. So that might be in a production environment, that might be, oh, and I clicked a little bit too fast. In a production environment, that might be more interesting. One more thing is app detection. In my examples in the script and in my GitHub, you'll see that I always use the file detection method to detect if the application is installed. What I'm still looking into is maybe creating a script detection method that will be able to detect if the application was actually installed with Chocolate. For instance, that will exclude the application getting a positive install check mark when the application was already, for instance, the Adobe Reader that I bumped into is already installed in a certain language and will not be overwritten by the Chocolate deployment. And I think a detection script could be a solution for this problem. And then to help troubleshoot these issues, it might help to have and find the MSI codes as well for installed software. And to this, and that it's probably widely documented online, but there is one command line that I probably would like to share still, and I'll include it in the slide deck before I upload it or provide it for publication, because it's not in there yet. And you see the script is still running to deploy applications. I fear I might have to run PowerShell as an admin to run it, I'm not sure. And that's just using the PowerShell commandlet get VMI object, and that has helped me tons to resolve conflicts between my scripted installs and getting rid of the older software that's available on a machine. So what we need for most is the identifying number. In this case, what it's actually really is the product code of the installed software that you can use to uninstall it with MSI exec. And if you can capture that product code, you'll be able to also uninstall conflicting software by adding, for instance, the command line to uninstall it to your deployment script file, for instance. That's taking some time. So in the meanwhile, let's have a look at what's all deployed. And I'm not sure if I'm still in time of going widely over it.
Widely over it, but it's okay.
Oh, widely over it. Sorry. Good thing I was the last one then. Let's have a quick look at our apps. And then you'll see when the page gets refreshed, all apps, that at the moment, a lot more apps are deployed already in our tenant. And I think I've opened the wrong window. Was it this one? No, it was. No, it's this one. It's okay. We needed the Windows apps. That's what it was. There we go. There we go. And now we see all these Chocolate applications already deployed. So that was it. So since I'm over time, not that much time for questions, but as I mentioned before, you can always reach out to me on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can check up on my blog. There are a few posts coming on during the course of next week about this subject in particular, so you can always look it up later then. And if you have any questions that aren't answered today, feel free to ring me and give me a message through any of these portals. All right.
For the people that still have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then for all the rest, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did tonight. I think we had great speakers. Thank you to all the speakers. Great sessions, by the way, all. We really enjoyed it. And we will make the recordings and presentations available online. Keep tracking our social media feeds, and you will be informed as soon as they are available. And don't forget to check out the website for our next event in July. And take care, guys. Thanks.
All right. Have a nice